Here is when he's meeting with a group of angels in the afterlife, and he starts to talk to them. And not just are they talking, but the things in his mind and the things that they're discussing appear in front of them. This is from his book, Secrets of Heaven, number 6606. When talking with angelic spirits, I have observed that the feelings and thoughts involved looked like a flowing stream all around us, and that the matter we were considering stood in the middle, surrounded by the flowing stream, which spread out from there in every direction. This too made it plain that thoughts and feelings reach out to communities on all sides.
It's funny that in this day and age we can maybe picture that more clearly because there's so many special effects and graphics and so on. What it would be like to be standing there just with some other people having a conversation, and all these visuals are just flowing around you, and the thing you're talking about is represented visually right in front of you.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope style in the front of them.
Right.
Yes, again, it's like standard movie magic at this point. Nothing like that.
Nothing like, remotely like that.
In the 1700s when this was being written.
Right.
Yeah, so where do thoughts come from? Of what consists our mental life? Here he's saying that two things. One is like they're real. The subject of the conversation they were having can be imaged in front of you, and because of the nature of the spiritual world, it is. In the spiritual world that Swedenborg discovered, you could call it like the mental world, because everything there that you think and feel is real. That's sitting there, and then there's this like misty stream of light that is an input into that stretches out to all these other groups of people in the afterlife. So their conversation is like a public conversation. It is being influenced by all these other people who have died and are there. Is anybody still watching this? Is that it? I'm just saying consciousness is a big old crazy thing. Nobody knows why it behaves like it is. This might be a part of, or this might be the explanation for why we go through the things we do.
And I don't know, it's mind-boggling that when you get a group of people together, like I've been in situations where everybody's sort of firing off a joke, and like how quickly something can occur, zing, pow, pow, just flying.
Yes.
Way more quickly than you could actually, I think that would be funny. Okay, let's see, I need a noun, I need a verb. No, it's flying. And I've also, in my editing, I've wondered where I can look at a page of text and very quickly my eye will go, what's that? What is that? That doesn't seem right. Well, based on what? I haven't even started reading it yet. But there are things about how quickly the mind works, or sporting events is another example where you just see people flying down. How are they able to do all the control of their body that they're doing and then be aware of where everybody else is and what's going on, and this ball, this puck, whatever it is that you're chasing around? Stuff is happening so quickly in the brain to make that happen that, frankly, it doesn't surprise me to think that, oh no, there's a behind-the-scenes team. Yeah. It's like one of these green screen movies where you see one person walking along, but actually there's 8 people, wearing all green who are making this happen.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that Swedenborg's model of consciousness would say that if you had a human being, a physical human being, with all the atoms and molecules in the exact place that they are, but yet there was no spiritual world, there was no afterlife inhabited by people, there would be no consciousness in the physical person. Like the delivery consciousness is actually an incredibly complicated thing that God is actually building for us in the afterlife. Everyone who goes there becomes another sort of node in consciousness. This is why humanity gets smarter. It's why we can comprehend things, technologies, in a way that we used to not. Is because there is this, that the machine, it all sounds weird and like science fiction But it stopped sounding that way about 5 years ago when the whole AI thing broke. And what that is like you go now, you ask your little, whatever it is, GPT, and you say, what about, how, do these socks match? And it goes out, surveys all this stuff, and from that, amalgamates it, pulls it back in, and then you have your answer. Swedenborg is talking with these angels, and that's happening on this massive scale from these communities around them.
It's a great analogy because until that came along, who could have imagined that you could put a question and then something would check, 50 million sources and frame an answer for you in a split second? It would seem completely unbelievable. And yet that's happening all the time. And if that's happening in this world, Swedenborg says everything in this world has not only a counterpart, it has a source in the spiritual world. That kind of thing's been going on forever in the other world.
And there's one place that it's been going on forever that we just didn't really know it was going on. And that is in this aforementioned human brain, which is about to make its appearance in this next number. Dun, dun, dun. I was shown, as I'm continuing that, I was shown that when thoughts together with feelings spread abroad, they swirl around in almost the same pattern that the folds of gray matter take in the human brain.
Oh, it's almost like if you take a very, coarse analogy, if you're using a leaf blower,
you got to use one.
The leaves will, you just want this leaf to go over there. But what they do is they do this swirling thing, just like water does with eddies.
Right back in the door that you forgot to close.
Yeah, that's right.
I've seen it happen.
You've seen it happen. I know, and sometimes you think, well, this will get it, and then half of it goes over there. So no. So you keep going more and more to the left to try to get it to go this way.
75 passes later. So there's this swirling
and reaching out.
The kind of thing that Swedenborg is talking about here, which we see these very tangible examples around us now, and before it was AI, it was the internet. You could do a Google search and search you have the whole of human knowledge in your pocket, that's the way that the spiritual world is. But the brain, the human body is like that. If I want to do this, I was just doing this little thing a few times in a row when I was talking. For our listeners, you missed what my hand was doing, but you're in luck because you didn't have to look at either of us for this whole, so you're already spoiled. This little motion of my hand, do you have any idea how many things collaborated to make that happen? How many cells and, I don't even know, neurotransmitter systems, and there's probably some hormones in there and some blood vessels. This is so much collaborating to make that single, simple action happen. So that's been going on in the human body and brain forever. And Swedenborg is just saying that pattern exists on a bigger level. That's what the whole spiritual world is this big old, like a human body. It's weaved together in the same way. So when you or I want to think or have a conversation, this conversation, not that this one is anything special, but it's like every other human conversation, there is this massive input from the spiritual world that is allowing this to happen. So it's just saying the same stuff that's been going on inside you is happening around you as well.
It's striking to think about if you really wanted to understand what was going on with a single hand gesture, you would have to consult tens of thousands of cutting-edge scientists who could try to tell you about different aspects of what was going on. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, even if you added all that up, they don't really know. When it all comes down to it, they could tell you a lot of things you don't know about the conversion of this substance into that substance and how energy gets created and passed on, and nerve signals and all that. Amazing stuff. Go on and on. Write a whole book about it. Series of books.
Yeah.
And yet still, it would still be sort of their best guess.
That's
as
right.
to what's going on.
And a woefully inadequate guess, because even if they could say, well, you're this muscle contracted and you're that one contracted, those muscles are made up of billions, I think, of cells, or some big number of cells.
A big number. Yes.
We're talking something-illions of cells or hundreds of thousands. No, there's no way it's less than 1 million cells. Come on, I'm embarrassing myself. So, within each of those cells, do you have any idea? I know you do. Do you have any idea of how many things are going on inside of those cells? Some of which we understand, some of which are sort of theoretical or understanding of. There's
Some
so
of which
much.
we have no clue about.
There's like all these little molecules. Those muscle cells are firing, which is this is like a contraction. I don't even know. Is it like myelin sheaths? I don't know. Some people sort of know, but nobody knows the details of that.
No, and then you get to the question of why, which is where Swedenborg really likes to live, is like, why did you make that hand gesture? It was interesting. It almost sounded like it was partly unconscious, or you're talking, so you're thinking a thought, but you don't know why is your hand responding.
Why am I like I am? Why am I like I am?
I think about that all the time.
Why are you like? But why does anybody have the kind of mannerisms they do, have the kind of personality they do?
Nature they have.
Part of it is heavily influenced by your unique connection to certain parts of the spiritual world.
Yeah.
That's what Swedenborg is experiencing here. So even the mannerisms, the kind of topics that occur to you, the things that you're interested in, it's not entirely sourced in, but a big portion of the existence of it is the connections you have to the spiritual world. We go on. He's talking about how it's like the folds, it takes the same shape as the folds.
Which was those eddies. That's what got me thinking about that. Was like
the leaf blower.
I know very little about the human brain, but I think it's curvy, isn't it? Like there's stuff that folds in like this so that it can efficiently things can be in contact with each other. Yeah,
Swedenborg was, I think, an anatomist first. Maybe that was And so he was in the 1700s.
That was kind of more his wheelhouse than theology.
Yeah,
actually.
He was in the 1700s, but he, more than you and I, he had actually probably dissected a brain, seen it, known that, but he sure didn't know about leaf blowers, did he?
No.
Thinks he's so smart?
Nothing.
I watched their convolutions for a long time. They circled, bent, wove their way inward, and reemerged the same way as the aforementioned gray matter in the brains. By the way, the thing that is swirling here is the influence of spiritual communities on the conversation that Swedenborg and these angels are having, which is visible to all of them.
What it's suddenly making me think of is that I used to live in southern Ontario for a while, and a time when there were very intense winters with a lot of snow up there.
That explains a lot.
And it always struck me how beautiful the snowdrifts are. After a fresh snow with a good solid wind, just the way it'll go over a hill and then it curves under, and then what it'll do around a fence post and everything, and then realizing, oh, that's the shape of the wind. The wind looks like that all the time. It's just the only time you can see it is when the snow is there, and then now you can see what the wind looks like every time it hits that post. But now we can see it.
He goes on. The patterns of heaven are even more amazing, though, and beyond all comprehension, even by angels. Angelic communities in the heavens follow this pattern. Angels' thoughts also flow into the same pattern and reach great distances almost instantly because they follow an infinitely perfect pattern.
I just think that I think when people have sort of simple thoughts about the afterlife, if anything happens in there, they're sort of thinking, certainly what I used to think at some point, that somebody's just sitting there or they're doing something, but there's no element in that simple thought of like, oh, you're over here or you're over there. There's no thought of like, oh no, there's like, what you're describing reminds me of the Northern Lights or something. There's huge flashing because there are these amazing waves and this electromagnetic energy going through the atmosphere. I don't, that's not part of my picture of heaven. It's amazing that Swedenborg has this very dynamic, extremely radically interactive view of what's going on, and particularly thoughts and feelings, which I would think, even if, okay, they're all sending each other text messages or something, but I still wouldn't think that those are actually thoughts and feelings that are shooting through this whole mechanism.
Well, I mean, hasn't everything we've learned about everything through science in the last couple hundred years shown that everything that looks not that complicated is actually very complicated?
Yes, that's right. That would be a good summary of everything that's been discovered in the last 200 years.
Even in Swedenborg's day, he even though he's an anatomist, and they didn't know that there were cells. They knew, I don't think, maybe they had like a little, they had this sort of hint like, oh, maybe there's animalcules, or no, maybe that was germs. Anyway, maybe, but they don't know about DNA. They don't know about mitochondria. You just think like, oh, there's flesh. You got flesh on your arm. Turns out that's much more complicated. Disease, much more complicated. There's all these microbes and stuff like that. Outer space. It seemed like there's a couple of planets here. Actually, it's trillions and trillions of galaxies, trillions and trillions of light years away. Everything's more complicated.
And the temperature and the background radiation, the temperature in space, if you look at a micro level, it's all fizzing up and down, this random motion of temperatures changing slightly. And
including, so if everything physically is that, it's just, the deeper you look, the more wondrous it is. Even our understanding of nature. And it's not just there's trees, there's actually a whole ecosystem, and this is how it works. And
everything they're finding about how trees take care of each other, even when a tree's been cut down, it's just a stump. The other trees are feeding that, how there's knowledge that they pass back and forth. And and it used to just think, well, that's just a thing, I can cut that down. Like that won't change anything for anybody else.
Wouldn't heaven be the same way?
Even more so, whatever that would be.
And so, as we've discovered physically, everything is actually complicated and amazing, and there's a ton of things going on anywhere. This is Swedenborg going and observing heaven and seeing, oh, that's how heaven is. And angels' thoughts flow into the same pattern and reach great distances almost instantly. Nothing like Nothing like that happened in the 1700s.
No.
It's happening now, friends at home. You are seeing this over great distances instantly. By this, I mean this show. And by distances, I mean, the internet. That's going over the internet. You're like, that's it. The show is up. It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Remotely like that. So it used to take Swedenborg a month to get from Sweden to England.
Yeah.
Right next to each other on the map.
So, as in heaven, so upon the earth. That would be, if that's really how it is in heaven, that would seem to explain why is the world becoming like that, because it's moving into the pattern of heaven. All right, so now let's talk about the light of heaven. So one element that Swedenborg discovered about consciousness when he was having these is that your process of thinking